So you decided to learn how to code in Python. Maybe you're brand new to programming or you're brand new to Python in general, but where do you do your coding? Maybe you're thinking about a text editor or a code editor or a Python IDE, and maybe that all seems a bit intimidating. Well, don't worry, because what we've done over at Hackr.io is we've created our own online coding environment for you to learn how to code in Python. Yeah, we've got this browser-based online code editor that you can use just by logging in to Hackr.io. So rather than talking about it, I'm going to jump over there. I'm going to give you a demonstration of all the features that you get with this online code environment. And I'm also going to show you some simple examples of running code within it so you can get to grips with it right away and start learning to code in Python and take your skills to the next level as soon as possible. Let's go over to the environment now and let's start coding in Python and get familiar with this online coding editor. So here I am logged into Hackr.io. I'm within the dashboard and the user environment area, and I get access to the Python code editor here in the left window. And here I am now looking at it. And it should be kind of self-explanatory if you spent any time in here before. If you spent any time in any kind of code editor, this will look somewhat familiar. I'm going to run you through all the features just in case you are new to coding and you're not quite sure what you're looking at. First of all, the thing you should be most aware of is this big button here to run code. And when I run code, what happens? My output appears in the output window. That is what you're always going to be doing. You're going to be writing your code, running your code, and looking at the output. That's how this works. So let's run through all the different things that you're seeing here. Naturally, you can see we are within a tab. This is a tab-based environment. You can create as many tabs as you like. And each time you open a new tab, they open along here. And you can either save those tabs or not. So I'm going to close these because I don't want to save them. But you see that you start off with an untitled.py file name. But if you want to change that, you would have to right-click the tab, save as anything you like. If I go into this, you can see I can change the title to whatever I like. And then once it's saved, I would then have the option to, of course, save it again, rename it, or delete it. So anytime you want to interact with this file, you can right-click the tab and you can do anything you want with it. Also, if you want to open up existing projects, you could come over here, click on Open Project, and this will list any existing projects that you already have. So I've got this project here. If I were to click on that, it would populate it for me, and I could then access and work on that project. So you can create your coding projects, save them for later, come back to them whenever you want, reopen them, edit them, do everything that you would as you normally would with any coding environment. You're familiar now with this idea of having tabs and accessing the different projects, renaming, saving and deleting, etc. What else have we got going on here? Well, I've told you this is to add new tabs. This is where you write your code. We've also got some other buttons here, haven't we? Well, we can change the size of the font. So maybe you want it to be really big, or maybe you want it to be really small, or you can leave it at the default level, whatever you like. You've also got the option here for maximizing the code editor window. If you want more space, you can then minimize again afterwards. That hides the output temporarily, but you can bring it back very easily by minimizing. You can toggle the theme. Maybe you prefer dark mode. Some people like dark, some people like light. Maybe you've got it set up automatically and it will intuit that for you as well. Or you can toggle the layout. Maybe you prefer to have it stacked in a column rather than in a row. Now you can choose whatever you like. You can just play around with these features, get comfortable and choose whatever you want. Also over here on the right, we've got another couple of buttons. This will clear the outputs. This will essentially wipe the terminal clean like I've just done there. A bit like working in a normal terminal. If you want to clear it, you'd run the clear command. This does that for you. And you can also maximize the output if you want to see more space. So again, I run my code, the code executes and it shows. I could maximize the space if I want to look at it in more detail. I could clear the output and so on and so forth. So it's fairly intuitive, fairly self-explanatory. And once you get to grips with it, I think you'll find it really easy. Also as well, you've got this option here for any point you want to hide the sidebar and make it even larger. Click on that and you can bring it back at any point also. And you could navigate to save projects over here just to mention. Once you've saved your projects, you could open them via this toggle with Open Project. Or you could also look at all of your saved projects by clicking here and you can go through the entire list and click on any one that you want and you can delete them there or you can reload them in here. All really easy to use. So here we go. I've run this code already a couple of times. You've seen it's really straightforward. But why don't we have a look at some other examples of Python code that you could run just so you can get familiar with all the different features that are available to you. We could start again with a really basic print. Why don't we do hello world? I feel like it's a rite of passage for everyone. So hello world. And then I could click run. And what do I see? Hello world. Okay, I'm going to clear that for now. And I'll run it again. And you'll see we've got our output. So it says the code has started to execute. You get your output and it tells you when it's completed. So that will delineate all the different runs. So you know if you've run the code multiple times, each time you see it's wrapped between those two things, you know it's a different iteration of running it. What else could we do? Well, maybe we could do some basic arithmetic. You know, that's something people like to do in Python. So why don't we say the following? A is equal to 5, B is equal to 10. And then I could print something out. How about I print out an F string, which is a formatted string literal, if you're not familiar with those. And I could say the following. I could say the sum of A and B is, and then I would use my placeholder there, and I would simply say A plus B. I could then run this, and what do I get? The sum of A and B is 15. I think you know that was going to be the answer, but as you can see, handles arithmetic and handles that very straightforward because it can do everything you'd expect to do when coding in Python. This code editor will do everything that you want it to do. Another great example, how about we look at iteration? Why don't we do a nice simple for loop? So for I in the range 5, okay, so using the built-in range function there, we could print something else. How about we say the following? We use another f string, formatted string literal, and we'd say this is iteration number. And hopefully you're familiar with the idea of zeroth indexing. If you're not, it will start at 0 because 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So when you use range, it goes up to, but not including the maximum number. If I want this to be shown correctly, I need to actually do I plus 1. Because of course, the 0th is the first iteration, so it'd be number 1, and so on and so forth. But we run this and see what we get. There we go, iteration number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, as you'd anticipate. So it handles iteration fine, like you would expect from any Python editor. And as you can see, like I've said there, as you continue to execute more code, it will all display in the output, and you can keep track of everything you've run, just like you would in a normal terminal on your computer. What else could we do? Well, we could take user input. So what could we do there? Let's imagine the following. I'd say name is equal to, I use the input function, and I would say the following. What is your name? This would then allow the user to provide their name, and we could do something with that. Let's do another print statement with another f string, and we would say the following. Hello, name. And we could say, welcome to hackr.io. I think that's a fairly welcoming message. Let's run that now. What do we get? Here we go. Now we get the option to enter our input. Notice these carets here, just like you would see in a terminal when there's an input to collect, it allows you to enter it right here. So I could say, my name is Robert. I could hit enter. It then processes that and says, hello, Robert, welcome to hackr.io. So input is handled. Everything you can do in Python, you can do here. Input, functions, everything you need to do, you're all set. But there's also something extra that we've built in, which I think is really helpful, because maybe you're interested in Python, because maybe you're interested in data, maybe data analysis, maybe data science, data in any form. Well, when it comes to Python and it comes to data, there's one thing that we should all be familiar with, and that is Pandas. Now, Pandas is a library, and I'm going to make sure it doesn't auto-complete that for us the way that we want it to. Pandas is a library that we essentially use for data manipulation. And we often import it as PD. That is standard. So PD is the way that we'd refer to Pandas. And if you were interested in Python for data, I would highly recommend learning to use Pandas. And if you do want to learn to use Pandas, well, guess what? You can do it within this code editor. So I'm going to give you a very simple example now of creating a basic and simple data frame, which is the standard thing that we use to store data within Pandas. And we're just going to see how easy it is to do and how simple it is to work with. So I've imported it. Use my import statement. I'm referring to it as PD, standard practice. Let's create a simple dictionary, which is going to be our data repository. And within this, let's just create a really simple example. So let's start with a name, and this is a field. So imagine with dictionaries, if you're not familiar with Python, a dictionary is key values. So the key in this case is name, and the value is going to be a list of values. It's like a database. It's kind of like a spreadsheet. Data frames are very similar to both. But what I'm going to do is I've got my name as my key, and I'm going to create a list of values, and they're going to be the names I want. So I'm going to say Alice, I'm going to say Bob, and I'm going to say Charlie. And then I'm going to create some more key values. Let's go with age. Another list, let's say they are 25, 30, and 35. So hopefully you can tell we've got this key value, and we've got a list. We've got Alice, Bob, and Charlie. Then we've got ages, 25, 30, and 35. Alice is 25. Bob is 30. Charlie is 35. That makes sense? Fairly intuitive? Okay. Now let's create our final bit of information for right now. We're going to say city. And with city, again, we're using a Python list, which is essentially an array in Python. And we're going to say New York for one. We're going to say Los Angeles, I could spell it properly, for Bob. And then we're going to say that Charlie lives in Chicago. Okay, so we have now created a very simple dictionary, key value pairs, where the keys are name, age, and city, and the values are lists of values. We're creating multiple values. We're creating, like I say, it's kind of like a database, kind of like a spreadsheet. Hopefully you can see the tabular format of this. It's a table of information. And what we could do with this table is we're going to take this dictionary and we're going to create a data frame, which is a standard thing within Pandas. And usually we use df to refer to a data frame variable. And I'm going to say pd.dataframe, and I can simply pass in data. That should then create a data frame out of my data dictionary. And then I could print it out. How about we do the following? So let's print out original data frame. I'm just going to print out unadulterated, unedited, unfiltered to start with. And I'm simply going to print df. And now I should be able to run this code and we will see what we see. Let me just check if I've made any errors. Everything seems to be right. We've got comma separation. We've got all of our quotes terminated properly. I don't expect any issues here, but let's run this code and see what we get. So I'm going to hit run. Code execution started, waiting for it to run, and there we go, original data frame. And now you can see hopefully how I've taken that dictionary and it's created what looks a bit like a table. If you've ever used Excel, this must look like an Excel table, right? So it's tabular data. And you can see we've got the name column, the age column, and the city column, right? So it's all in columns. So those keys were the column names and the list of data were the rows. Really intuitive. And ordinarily, of course, when you get into Pandas and you get really deep into it, you're not going to be creating dictionaries. You're going to be working with giant data sets and importing them and using them in data frames. And that might be CSVs. It might be anything that you need to use. It could be JSON. Could be any type of data format, depending on whether you're doing data mining or cleaning, etc. Could be data you create within your Python code itself. Could be data you scrape from an API. Who knows? But the point is, you can see we've got columns and rows. And you can also see we've got 0, 1, 2 on the left. This is the index. So it's zeroth-based indexing again. Now, that was really easy. Why don't we do something else just to wrap up this demo? Rather than showing the original data frame, how about we show the filtered data frame? And what's a good filter here? Well, I think age is a good filter. We could look for ages above a certain threshold. How about anyone that's older than 28? Okay, so we are then going to use this. So we're going into df. We want to look for df and we're focusing on the age column and we're going to say greater than 28. And if I run this, what we should return is the rows from this data frame where the age corresponds to greater than 28. If I click run now, let's see what we get. Filter data frame, Bob and Charlie, exactly what you'd expect. So obviously there is infinite possibilities for using this code environment. You can do whatever you want to do within it. I'm just demonstrating to you right now how easy it is to use, how intuitive it is to use, and how simple it is to do all of your Python coding within here. And like I say, whenever you're finished, you can save your projects, you can come back to them later, you can do whatever you want. You've got endless options here. But my intention is to hopefully demonstrate to you that it's really easy to do this all within your browser. So you haven't got to worry about installing a complicated Python IDE or getting bogged down in extensions and packages and anything else that might feel a bit intimidating. You're just learning to code. You want to just focus on the coding part. Well, this is a great place to start. And I hope you've enjoyed working through this demo with me. So now I've finished, I think the natural thing for me to do would be I'll clean up my environment and I'm done. And I'll join you back in a second. So there you have it. Hopefully you have seen how easy it is to use the Hackr.io Python coding editor to do all of your Python coding. It is built with you in mind. And of course, we'd also encourage any feedback. There's a feedback button built within the nav bar of the user area when you log into Hackr.io. So if there's anything you'd like to see more of or less of, if there are any features you've noticed that you'd like added, all you've got to do is send some feedback and I promise you that we will get back to you and we'll take all of your feedback into consideration because we're building these tools for you. It's with you in mind. We want you to get the very most that you can out of those. So really anything you've got to say is always welcome, but hopefully you feel excited to give this a go. If you are interested in learning Python, you've been thinking about it, well now, check it out. You could use our code environment to help you do that. We've also got an extensive range of resources, blog posts, articles, how-tos, and other learning resources built into Hackr.io. So check those out as well if you want some help with learning how to code in Python. If you're learning programming, maybe that's your new thing for 2025, whatever it may be. I hope you found this useful and that you've enjoyed this video, and I can't wait to see you in the next one.